Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature, the ultimate guide to packing for a day hike, presented by North American Expedition Leader, Jeremy Covert. Thank you so much for being here today, Jeremy. I'm going to hand things off to you.
Thank you very much, Kendall. It's my pleasure to be here with you all. I hope I have some former friends from my guests on some of the trips I've been on, and maybe some future friends from trips that we may be lucky to be on together in the future. So this is the ultimate guide to packing for a day hike, presented by Jeremy Covert, myself from Louisville, Kentucky, October 16th, 2020. My name is Jeremy. I was born here in Louisville, where I've recently relocated. My fiance purchased a home, be a little bit closer to family, that I run trips out from here. And my occupation, expedition leader, photographer, writer, and speaker. Favorite place, Glacier National Park. If you have not seen the webinar on Glacier, I also have one on a 9-month trailer trip that I did. Please feel free to check those out. They are saved in the webinar section on the NatHab page. So Louisville, Kentucky, a little bit about that. Home of the largest baseball bat in the world. Kentucky Derby, home most exciting 2 minutes in sports, and a really progressive, wonderful, artsy, great city. Wonderful place. I feel very lucky to be grown up here, and as I've come back, it has actually gotten better throughout my life. So today's topics, what we're going to talk about, a little bit about Louisville and surroundings, gear, that's going to be the majority of what we talk about, what I recommend, and what you need to decide on, because it's not a one size fits all for everyone. I've got a few stories peppered throughout today's presentation, and to the craziest animal photo experiences that I've ever had, not what you think, and they're very bad photos. I just want to warn you of that, but they're funny stories, and a few short films that are going to be at the very end of the talk today, and a few random bits of unsolicited advice. First, we will start with one of those, and that is some recommendations. I don't know if you have talked about this on any other webinars, but My Octopus Teacher, it is a movie, a film on Netflix. If you have Netflix, it is an absolutely wonderfully filmed, beautiful cinematography, amazing story about a cinematographer who befriends a small octopus and watches it throughout its life. Great movie, can't recommend it enough. It talks a little bit about animal consciousness, which is a big thing that I'm really interested in, so I really recommend checking that out. Also, a few other recommendations. I'm halfway through $12 Million Stuffed Shark. It is an outrageous book on the nature of contemporary art sales. It's unbelievable and entertaining, even for the non-artist and or novice art patron. Cannot recommend it. It's very interesting. And then, if that's not your cup of tea, I just finished Autumn of the Black Snake. It's one of the Will Hoagland books, Whiskey Rebellion, one of my favorite books of all time by Will Hoagland. It's just the formation of the Standing Army and Federal Reserve and things. And the Autumn of the Black Snake kind of sets that up more, and it talks about Mad Anthony Wayne and the creation of the U.S. Army. An absolutely amazing book, and really apropos for our time that we find ourselves in now. Please feel free to check those books out. Really great reads. So, Louisville, Kentucky today, my friends. Here are just a few photos I've shot around town, really in the last few days, just walking around sunrise. And here's Cherokee Park, not too far from my home. You can see the leaves are starting to change, and they are really, it's at the early part of it, but it is happening and it is going. So definitely check your area for when the best shots are going to be, and then go out and shoot some, because it is a rare and beautiful time for everyone if you live around trees. Maybe in the Southwest, you're not going to get some of this stuff. But here in the Midwest, in the Ohio River Valley, we have some spectacular foliage that is starting to happen. I'm heading down to the Smokies in a few weeks. I'm really excited about that because it's just starting to happen down there too. But we're a little bit away from the best time for down in the Smokies. But up here, it's starting to hit peak shots. Here we have a Dawn Redwood, one of the deciduous conifers, one of the rare ones. And as you can see, this is up on a hilltop at Calvary Cemetery, not too far from where I live, a 200-acre cemetery in the middle of town. Really amazing place to go walk. And these are some really exposed trees at the top of the hill, and so they're the ones that are changing first. Really love this photo. It's kind of like the title of, like, you know, the road we all travel, the leaves and us, we all end up at the same place on the ground. So let's get into the business of what we came here to do. We're going to talk about how we pack for one of these day hikes. So, titled this chapter of this talk, do we really need all this crap just to go for a hike? Why burden yourself when you are doing something that is supposed to be fun? Well, yes, some of that stuff you don't need, some of that stuff you do want to have, because it's going to make a better trip. So what we want What we want is a paradigm shifting trip of a lifetime, a hike that is going to really, really rejuvenate you and make you feel like this guy. That's right. I did not ask him to pose for this. He said, Jeremy, take my picture. This is what I'm going for in my trips, my friend. This is what all guys are going for in our trips. And we want people to feel that we want them to raise their arms in victory, like this couple at Logan Pass. That was a really great trip. And like this guy, I said, King, pose. And he said, oh, I want a picture like this. And this is what we want. And so you go to the right place. And so often people say, take my picture. I want this exact thing, documented. And so that's proof that they are at the right place. They have the right gear. They're doing it the right way. They are having fun. This is what we want. This is me in Death Valley, 200 feet below sea level. I asked someone to take my picture because I wanted my picture there. And this is the same place. The picture is taken down in the valley below me there. But same situation. I was taking several other families' pictures as they were coming up here. I'm shooting solo by myself, sunrise. And then one of the guys says, hey, man, you want your picture? I said, no, I don't do pictures. He said, you don't want your picture in this spot? I said, actually, I do want my picture in this spot. And he wanted me to smile up the camera. I said, no, I'll just take a picture of me looking at it. And so this is what we want. We want to go out there. We want to see these beautiful places. And we want to take back these memories to wherever we're going and relive these moments. That's what we want. Sometimes, unfortunately, this is what we get. We have a crying child here. This is very far in the backcountry. This is a very extreme hike. Even though we were carrying most of the way for her, but she was not having a good day. It was just a little too much for these two kids who were this wonderful family, and the kids were super awesome. This is a long day around the Dawson Pit walking route, some high elevation hiking. These guys were from sea level. They were a little overburdened, but they had some of the right gear, but just not capable. This is sometimes what happens. And then this is sometimes what happens. I don't know if you can see my furrowed brow there, but yes, I'm carrying an 85-pound pack right there. It's blistering hot over Browns Pass and super high elevation and not pleasant in the middle of the day in early August in extreme heat and sun. And so this is what we want to avoid. And how do we do that? Hiking is not like whitewater rafting. This is what you want in whitewater rafting, but due to the dynamic nature of the river, this is sometimes what you get, and this is not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about dynamic nature of a river and rapids and unseen obstacles. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about an environment that you control a lot of the factors. You control when you go. You control who you go with. You control what time you show up. You control what you bring with you, what you need, how long you are planning on staying, and where you're actually going to go, and making sure you stay on that path and you don't get lost and go places you don't want to go. And it's also a lot of fun when you can pull this off. A lot of loving, a lot of wonderful bonding, like me and my fiance here, and you don't want to turn something like this into a death march by someone being dehydrated, not eating enough, having way too much weight, having the wrong footwear, or simply saying, I wish I had my camera for this. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, my friends. What can you bring to make that happen? So first, let's talk about what everybody thinks about with gear and this type of deal, and that is backpacks. That's right. So day packs, camera bags, backpacking bags, travel bags, electronics, and dry and wet bags. So here I am years ago, backpacking over in Glacier and with my very old setup, and it was a little heavy, I'm not gonna lie. This was the last trip I ever did. I went in to rescue someone, and they had so much gear that I had to take from them. It actually twisted and bent the frame, sent it to Osprey. They were unable to fix it. They actually sent me a new bag, which I still have. And this is the bag they sent me. And as you can see, it is a very big bag, and I can put way too much stuff in it. And my average cruising weight was 85, 87 pounds at the beginning of a trip. We would eat some of that weight down, and I would be in the low 80s at the end of a trip. This is on a 4 to 6 day backpacking trip. Can you imagine hiking 6 to 8 hours a day with 85 pounds on your back? Don't try to imagine it. It is not pleasant. Here I am with Celeb, one of my friends. He was a Sherpa on the trip, and we are just saying, wow. We both had nearly the exact same pack. We're both saying, this is just absolutely ridiculous how much stuff we have. We brought stuff in for family of 4. It was a great trip. But we were thinking, even on a short trip like this, because it's only a 2-nighter, it was still brutal, and we were only going 3 to 4 miles in. And so this is what you do not want to do, my friends. You do not want to stack things 24 inches over the top of a backpack. This is also that same old Osprey pack, and absolutely insane to try to hike around with this. This is actually taking that child's gear who was crying on the rock that I showed a few photos earlier. This is what we wanted that day with the crying child. This is my fiance and I doing the Dawson Pitamakan Loop. You can see her tiny little day pack there with her trekking poles, and she's got a little spot device, and we were just sending a little spot communication to mark that spot. It's right on Continental Divide, a really beautiful place. This is also what we want, to be able to take the time, relax, and look. Is looking down on Old Man Lake at that same loop, looking up from Old Man Lake at that spot, and us hiking in that day. That's the same ridge line there. You can see the full sun suit, see a nice little backpack. She does like to wear a Camelback. I'm not a super huge fan. We'll talk about that in a second. Trekking poles can really help you in that they are enabling you to maintain balance. All your intercostal muscles, all those inner muscles that it takes you to balance, simply balance with the heavier pack or any pack and walk, that will use 10 to 40% more of your energy than if you use trekking poles and you are using them to aid your balance. But what we're talking about here is not just for hiking. You can use this for skiing and any cold weather stuff. Even a nice day like this can get some clouds on it. The temperature can fall below 60, and we'll talk about some of the gear that you would need for that. One of my favorite hiking outfits, small little backpack, enough water, very lightweight sandals, and a sunsuit. We're going to talk about that all in a second. So here we go. Let's start with some backpacks to recommend. Of course, a great backpack would be the NatHab Osprey pack, the Parsec. It actually is, I'm not joking about this, it is a great pack. And I have used it. If you have been with me in Glacier, if I am not using my camera bag, which we'll see momentarily, I am using that bag. And then the Polebridge Mercantile bag, which is actually a Nike bag there, tiny, 2 water bottle holders, a little spot for wallet and keys and tiny things, and then a bag that has enough space for food and a little safety gear, and then your clothing. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then just a side note, we'll talk more about it later. The Sunbrella is this is my ideal setup right there. So the Beast, this is the bag that you will see me with on most trips. It is my camera bag. It's made by Dakine. It is really wonderful. It's got the little hip straps that have some little pockets in it. And what I really love about this bag, and this is an industry standard for a lot of skiing professional photographers, also hiking professional photographers, and basically outdoor wilderness photographers. And one of the beauties of this bag is you lay it down on the back of the bag and you're able to access the cameras, and that flap kind of protects them and it's against your back. So you're putting that down in the mud, the rain, the sleet, whatever is happening, and then it's not getting that dirt all over your back, which is going to find its way into that camera kind of pocket there. And so I'm able to keep 2 full frame sensor cameras in there, 70 to 200 lens, 16 to 35 lens, and a 50 millimeter 1.8. And that is my go-to kit for every single type of photo, hike, or anything that I want to do, even around town. It also has spots for sun sticks, and so I prefer solid sunscreen, and Badger makes a really good hypoallergenic one, and then also a lip gloss or lip balm type sunscreen, and I always keep it there. I own multiples. I have some in cars, have some just in other backpacks, but this always lives in my backpack in the left little hip pocket, and it's in there right now. And so I always have it, even when I am around town. The other morning, I actually had to use it because my sunrise trip turned into a much longer photo trip than I had expected. So here we have my normal luggage. I'm asked often, because luggage is an issue with guests, I ask often what luggage you recommend. I use this large rolling Eagle Creek bag. I hate fighting with, when I am rushing in the morning, especially fighting getting all my stuff in gear. So I try to leave a little bit of room and pack kind of light, but having this massive bag that also fits into a lot of trunks of cars and into back seats. Some of those big bags, it's difficult to actually get them into the trunk of a car, or it takes up a majority of the back seat. So I found this bag is actually kind of longer and thinner, and it goes into a lot of other places. Then I have my camera bag, the Beast, and then I have a Pelican case, which is kind of a large briefcase. Then I switch out all sorts of different stuff that goes in that, even for professional photo shoots, but mainly it's got my computer and then food and my daily stuff. And so those back 2 bags are my carry-on luggage. This is my old go-to, and I still bring this, and I would consider it for Churchill because I'm able to bring my laptop in it. That is a Pelican. This is a Pelican product also. The laptop goes in the front, and then the back, you're able to get 2 full frame cameras in there, and then also a couple lenses. And as you can see, though, it's very different in that backpack part, where it goes against your back, actually hits the mud, the snow, the rain, and everything, and so it gets all over you, and then everything just starts to get dirty. So it has its applications. This is not a backcountry per se. This is more a city trip or a really specialized trip where you are going to be going from hotel to car and out to a rover. There's comparison. This is what I would bring on a professional photo shoot. There are 3 flashes in there. I use the MagMod system, which is a magnet-based system to be able to use diffusers and different colored gels. And then this is a professional video shoot thing minus the tripod and light stands that I would use. And then I have lights in there, and then sound equipment, field monitor, and sound gear in the left bag also. A little bit about backpacking stuff, just for weight analysis, and that's a big deal also in day hiking too. This tent, very, very lightweight, folds down to about this size, and the floor and the tent top are all one piece, so you don't have 2 pieces like you do on other tents. Here, my backpacking stuff is in Capitol Reef National Park with the Sunbrella. And that bag, the bottom there is that backpack. I sewed that. It comes from a kit from Ray Jardine, Jardine. He sells these kits, and he also made the design, and he's also designed a lot of different things. He's got a bunch of first ascents in Yosemite for climbing, and he is an absolutely fascinating guy. And his designs are rock solid, and a lot of the contemporary backpacking companies are actually using a lot of his designs and for the ultra lightweight backpacking kits that a lot of the thru hikers are doing on these big trails in the US. And if you don't want to sew yours, you don't have the time or patience or desire, you can buy these types of bags. It's a little bit less, but you can get 40 and 50 liter bags like that with Sing in the background for under $20. So these are very inexpensive, and those actually fold up and zip into the lid, or what people call the brain, or the top of the pack, and it's very easily thrown in that large Eagle Creek bag, any bit of checked baggage, so you can, it's so small, and then it's big if you need it when you travel. Here is my tent. This is actually an old tarp tent that I have. It's a little bit heavier than the new one that we invested in, and absolutely still very, very useful though. Those are 2-person tents and a 2-person tarp right there. And that's the thing. You want to go to these places like Dominus Falls here, and you don't want to have some Frankenstein pack like what I have there. You want to bring only what you need, whether it's a day hike or a backpacking trip, and you want to bring the right weight and the right size ratio for what is comfortable for you and what is going to accomplish everything that you want from the trip. Now, is that photos, whatever, that's going to be a different story. I don't bring big cameras in these backcountry trips, although I have. We'll talk about that in a little bit. On that trip, this is me, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a late lunch. I'm going over the paper map, huge fan of paper maps over the electronic things. The electronic ones do have their own place. They are really, there is a place for it, but I say have that also, but always have the paper map. Know where you are on the paper map, so in case there is ever an issue with the electronics, it bugs out, it runs out of batteries, it breaks, anything, you are still safe and not stranded in the middle of nowhere, creating a life-threatening situation, or just an unpleasant situation ruining your vacation. On this day, side note, interesting story. I'm not sure if I've said this on a webinar or not. I was hiking in, this is about 5 hours after that last photo, and I am only a few miles away from the campground to meet the gentleman who I am supposed to be hiking out all of his gear over the next 2 days. And as I'm hiking through the woods happily, I'm calling out my family members' names because I think it's super weird, trying to scare off bears. This is a real bear area, very remote, right on the Canada-US border in Glacier. And all of a sudden, as I'm screaming, Jim, Josh, Dad, and then all of a sudden, a shrub directly next to me explodes, and literally, I kid you not, the earth shakes, and it is a massive old bull moose that has ran right next to me. They do not charge, run directly at some people. They will run right next to you. And I cringed, thinking it was a bear waiting to actually be knocked down. And I saw a wall of fur run literally within 2 feet of me, directly behind. And I ran down the trail a little bit. The moose stopped in the shrubs, and I just stood there thinking, did that really just happen? I got out my GoPro, started videoing, and then all of a sudden the moose, trying to scare me off even more, shook its head. This entire bust-sized shrub that it was hiding in moved, and then the next sound is me running with the GoPro in hand, laughing because it was one of the craziest things that I had ever experienced up to that point. Since then, several other experiences have happened with moose that dwarf that one. So that's a little bit about what you would put on your back. But we spend so much time concentrating on bringing less gear and lighter gear and cutting the ends off of toothbrushes, which is absolutely ridiculous, and cutting little parts of zippers off to save, grams, which is absolutely insane in the grand scheme of things. We often forget about one of the heaviest and most debilitating items we carry with us every step of the journey, and those are our shoes. So there's a little bit of homework for you, my friends, if you are interested in this at all. In Google, in the browser, in the search thing, type in 1 pound on your foot equals, and let it autofill. It should say 1 to 3 pounds, or 3 to 5 pounds on your back, depending on what literature you're looking at. This is originally attributed to Sir Edmund Hillary and his first ascent of Everest, but it really gained popularity and notoriety and solidified in a lot of people's minds in 1984 when the U.S. Army did a study. This is actually a published paper you can find, but there's been many articles written on it since. The energy cost and heart rate response of trained and untrained subjects walking and running in shoes and boots. And so basically what they found was the extra weight and the rigidness of those shoes greatly increased the amount of energy that the person puts out. This is not really debatable anymore. It is known and common fact. And so definitely look into this. So I started this journey. These are all my shoes. This is the only company that I use. It's called Zero Shoes. I do not work for Zero Shoes. They do not pay me. There's no relationship like that really, but it's Zero, X-E-R-O. And I started with these right sandals. I was looking for the lightest sandals in the world to bring on these backpacking trips so that I could just go out and use my regular hiking shoes, and then at camp have something that was really lightweight to walk around in and relax my feet. And I started wearing these shoes, but at the same time, I bought a pair of their sandals, and then shortly thereafter, a pair of their shoes. And I literally did not ever wear any of my other pairs of shoes again. It is when I went to my shoes, it was all that my body wanted to put on were these. Now, why is that so? First off, you're going to notice maybe if you look at these and compare them to other shoes, it's got a much wider toe box. And so it allows your foot to expand and move a little bit more naturally so you're not cramming your foot in. And then it's also very breathable. Most of these shoes, some of the dress shoes aren't that breathable, but you're not using those in the same capacity that you're using the other shoes, although the dress shoes are very comfortable. And so these Prios, the hiking boots, the sandals, obviously, and the canvas shoes, they breathe really well. They have this wide toe box. And the most important thing is the sole of the shoe is so flexible. You can take these shoes and roll them up into kind of a tiny egg roll shape. And that allows your foot to have a natural bit of motion that is far more comfortable for your body and far more healthier for your body. And then the lightweight paired with that, it can, in my experience, direct experience, it doubled the amount of distance I could hike in a day comfortably. And yes, I do use these on my backpacking trip, and yes, with heavy weight. But I would not say you want to just buy these shoes and go on a 1,000-mile hike. It takes a few weeks to build up to this, and you have to walk on it properly, keeping your feet underneath your body and propelling yourself forward, stepping on the ball of your foot or your whole foot coming down straight at the same time and landing, and it will change the way that your posture, your back, and a lot of body pain. So if you cannot see me on the screen, try to make it to where you can. If you were to take your old type of hiking boots that weigh 1.5 to 2 pounds plus each, and you were to strap those babies onto your hands, and you use your hands as an analogy for your feet. And then let's say you spend 8 to 12 hours in those boots like you would on a normal hiking day. Let's go through your average day in your daily life, your civilian life, with those hiking boots on your hands. So you wake up in the morning, you put them on, you do all your morning cooking, you drive to work, you do everything at work, or maybe you're staying at home, you do yard work, you do housework, you cook, you turn on lights, you open doors with those rigid boots on. They're heavy, they're smashing your fingers together, they're keeping your wrist or ankle, hand ankle, into a very, very similar position all day long. And then when you get home at night and you relax and you unlace those puppies and take them off, your toes are going to be very sore. Your ankle is going to be very sore. Your calf is going to be very sore. Your knee is going to be very sore from the rigidity of it and all the extra weight. Your hip is going to be sore, and it's going to even translate into your torso. Think about it. It makes sense. So whether you get these shoes, I implore everyone to investigate lightweight shoes and then walk in them in your daily life. And this is kind of a full investment thing. I can't even put on other pairs of shoes now. It feels like really spongy, tight, not a lot of breathing room in them for me. So check it out. Traveling with food. This is not only a quality thing, but it can also be a safety thing. So we're gonna talk about food preparation, storage, cooking, consumption, water stuff, and cleaning your hands and self. First off, on that note, cleaning yourself and hands, do wash your hands as often as you can in the backcountry. It is the #1 illness or #1 injury is getting sick from unwashed hands in the backcountry. But let's start with talking about some food. Here we have my favorite bakery in the world. It's in Eugene, Oregon. It's Sweet Life. I have boxed up little treats from this place. It's amazing. They do have some gluten-free treats for me, and they are amazing. And I've taken them on hikes I used to lead out of the University of Oregon outdoor program. So if you have something like that, this is what you would put it in. This is my daily setup. If you have gone on trips with me, you have seen one or both of these cans. I will typically put some cut up fruit in the one on the right, and then use the one on the left to make a morning cereal where it's just soaked oats and some fruit in coconut water, and very, very fortifying, and it can make you last all day. And cannot recommend this type of system enough. And the one on the left is MSR. You can obviously cook in it. And you can also put leftovers or food that you make and bring it in there, bag it up, and put that into a small bag that you are hiking with. And I do take these on day hikes, depending on the type of thing. I don't like to bring this unless I'm not hiking too far. I'll just bring a little baggie with a rice cracker or rice cake, peanut butter and jelly type sandwich type thing. But typically with some bananas and some fruit also. Here I am in Brookings, Oregon. I was actually living aboard on a large sailboat and caught some salmon with some friends out fishing off the Chilkoot River, and had a nice little picnic here, grilling the salmon over a fire. And as you can see, that it can be done very gourmet with just a few simple items: a small sharp knife in a protective case, a tiny little cutting board, and then, and I do use different types of coolers. This was given to me, that's why I have the styrofoam cooler, but also some spices. And you can do amazing things. One of my favorite things to do now is to go out for hikes and then have a spot picked out when I'm done with the hike to where I would have a picnic out, and rather than having to rush back in some vacation touristy area to get food at a restaurant. And this is one of those kits that I would use for that. I have a Coleman Party Stacker cooler, which I've owned several of these at this point. I sanded down a cutting board, the edges to fit in that concave top, so that it doesn't slide around, whether it's on a picnic table or in the back of the vehicle. And then you see some of my cooking utensils, a knife, a serrated knife, because it stays sharp forever and is very effective for cutting stuff in the field. And with that case, I keep all of my food that is dry stuff in the case on the right, and all of the tools and utensils there. And then on the left, obviously, would be all the perishables. I do recommend a little mini salt or little pepper grinder and some coarse sea salt, a little container like that. And oh, we've got a nice little wine glass there, natural habitat plastic wine glass, which me, my fiance, and I do use a lot. And you know, at first it was just kind of a joke thing, but it's actually highly, highly functional. Can't recommend something like that enough also. So for another setup, we have 4 stoves here to make some warm food. Not everybody wants to have a cold picnic. So you can see the bags they're stored in. And then we have a Whisper Light 2000, which uses, I think, white gas. And then on the far left, you see it is a alcohol stove. And then on the bottom, you have an ultralight, tiny camp stove burning solid fuel. And on the right, a very similar by Esbit. So it's a little bit close up of these tiny stoves. I cannot recommend these little tiny stoves, even for a day hike, to take these out, warm up tea, or make a little mac and cheese out in the backcountry. It is a game changer, especially on cold days. My only issue with this is it's so tiny and so lightweight, I often lose it in my gear and pack. But ladies and gentlemen, that is a good problem to have. So I recommend this little guy also. All right, the voluntary burden. That's right, this is a burden, the stuff we're talking about, having to carry this stuff in. So the voluntary burden, carrying safety gear, extra clothing, camera gear, tripods, tents, lights, electronic equipment, drinks, whatever that is for you, chairs, tables, and books. First of all, let's just start out by saying probably don't need many books in the backcountry. You definitely don't need any tables, chairs. I can hear an argument for some people. The rest of the stuff we'll talk about here in a second. How many times have you gone on a trip? You get to the airport, or you're packing everything in your living room, or you are actually on the trip in a hotel room, and you think, why in God's name did I bring all of this stuff? I myself have done it. Over the years, I've refined what I bring. But bringing a lot of stuff is not a problem. I say double down, bring the stuff you want, bring the stuff you need, and use it. You must use it. Otherwise, it is a waste, and it is a horrible, horrible thing that you have schlepped it all over God's creation. So a great camera will allow you to get these photos. You only have a few seconds to get, like this bobcat in the Southwest, or like these polar bears who had been sparring all day at a distance, and then everyone had gotten enough of it, and then they sat down and they started nuzzling like this. It was one of the cutest things ever. It's like a Coke commercial. And so I shot this off. Or a great photo like this. Yeah, you can get a decent photo with your phone. But why not you have spent so much, your most valuable resource, your time. You spend your time coming to this place. Why not spend a little bit more time and energy, get a nice camera there, learn how to use it, and shoot a picture where you can print this thing 18 by 24 to remember being next to one of the most magnificent creatures in the history of the world on the planet right now alive, and you were there. Record your memories in a quality way. Also, it's not only going to allow you to record it, this is another thing. This was 2 images stitched together on a wide angle lens with a good program like Lightroom if you know how to do any panoramic stitching. You can get this with a pano from a phone, which I did. I wish I put both pictures on there. It would just be far grainier and not as clear. You do not need a 500mm lens like what was used for this in Yellowstone, but they help. Now, trust me, I want those super zoom lenses. But really, I have found, it's been my experience, a 200mm zoom is about all that you really have to shoot some amazing photos. Now, obviously, I will take a 500 to 800 or something with teleconverter on it to make it super big, but you really, that's the numbers that I have found. And it doesn't have to be a great camera. You know, this was shot with a $350 I think Canon to SD 200SX or something. It's one of their point and shoots. It's a fixed lens. You don't have to put any other lenses on it. Still a great, great shot. And that same camera in really great light, that was a really cloudy day, in really great light, you can get some fantastic stuff. And some of those super zooms that I was just saying you don't have to have, they really can unlock a whole different experience with an animal when you can see it up close and personal and really get a sense of its behavior and its personality. And you're spending all that energy and resources to get there. Why not spend a little bit more? And then also with a high quality camera and knowing how to use it, you can do some playing around with depth of field, and you can really, really get the shots and set up these shots as you need to make them as dramatic as possible. And like this at Dave's with the dog sleds, I brought just the dog face in. You can see that plane that's in focus with that snow and then everything else. It adds drama to the photos and will lead the eye to where you want people to look. Exactly on this spider photo I shot in Oregon, and this down in Sayulita, Mexico. The first shot I shot, everything was in focus. I said, it's pretty cool, it's kind of boring. And so I focused in on just a few of those tiny turtles making their way to the water, and then kind of blurred everything else out. Learn how to do this. If you have this type of camera, you can do it, and it will add quality to your work. I brought a 14mm lens to do this, and it was actually a several hour process to get this single photo, which I had in my mind even before I got to Sayulita. And but it was extra gear. It was kind of nerve-wracking to have it, leaving it in the hotel when I wasn't using it. But I was so glad that I brought it. And over the last few years, thinking back on it, I'd say, yeah, it was worth it having that little extra, weight to have to carry. Now, tripods, this is a huge thing. This is the Manfrotto Advanced, very inexpensive, 100, 120 bucks. But these things are tanks, and this thing here has traveled all over North America. It probably has more mileage than most Americans have traveled in their life. and it's still going. And I still use this on big photo shoots too. But you do not just have to have a big camera to use a tripod. I use these tiny tripods for my cell phones, and you can get amazing time-lapse video and other shots and other video using these guys. But the real magic of a tripod comes with a big DSLR, where you can get these amazing shots like the Milky Way here in Death Valley, or the auroras from this past season. Oh my gosh, it was such a great trip. The Northern Lights, and then, or this one, it's a little out of focus, but I was under extreme duress at this point. I will just say that. And but these are mandatory, because these are, I think this was like a 12-second photo to get this, and this is in town. And so the range that I was shooting would be doing like 5 and 12 for the usable images from this shot. And then a little bit better focus, you know, these are once in a lifetime experiences for most people, including myself. And so I want to be there, I want to be ready, and I want to document it so that I can remember how truly beautiful these experiences were. This is the tripod pointed straight up into the sky, directly after this photo. So bring those tripods. They also make you ability to take pictures that the human eye cannot see. This is actually dark. You need a headlamp to safely walk around here at this time. But with a long exposure, you can take the little subtle light as the sun is just starting to crest, and or not even starting to crest, but the light is starting to creep over the horizon. And with a long exposure, say 20, 30 seconds, even up to several minutes, you can get these amazing sunset photos that the human eye will never see, because the light simply does not exist. You can take a photo like this with a high ISO, handheld, but it's going to be grainy. Putting it on a tripod allows you to make it the crispest shot possible. So you don't have to have a tripod, it's just increasing the quality at this point. And these tripods, you can get a very, very lightweight, very cheap tripod. I would not take it on a professional shoot, but you can hike with it for 20 bucks at Walmart. And so it is in everyone's absolute budget, and everyone can carry this stuff, like in Death Valley here. And getting up early, going out, shooting these shots, you are getting so much more out of the trip, because just this photo is not the experience. I had the experience of going out and hiking around in the pitch black, shooting the Milky Way by myself in the dunes in Death Valley. It was as great as the rest of the day hiking with my fiance. Seriously, very, very powerful, and really, really worth it in my opinion. Off camera or on camera flash, I only use MagMod. It's this new system. It was used to get this at Oregon Pike. Down on the US-Mexico border. Really, really great setup, very, very basic. And you can get a cheap flash like this, the Young Uo, for 60, 70 bucks for any camera setup. I took this into Carlsbad Caverns. I actually brought 2 flash in, some colored gels, really took some time and got some very unique photos. A lot of the backlight is the lighting they set up, and then the front light on this stalagmite was myself. And even in the Grand Canyon area, this is a long exposure, 10 to 20, actually I think the 10 to 30 seconds, depending on what time of the evening I was shooting this. But the tree in the absolute foreground, I popped 2 flashes to illuminate that with some colored gels to kind of match what the moonlight was, and then the rest is all moonlight. And so these off-camera flashes are really, really valuable for popping some of these things. You know, and so how I would do this is I would actually hit the button, it would go for 10 to 20 seconds or longer, and then I would stand back and point my flash, and it would just pop once, and that's what I was getting. Okay, so those are all optionals. These are some of the things that I would say are must-haves for everyone. If you go into bear country, you want to have bear spray. Get a little container for it. I recommend, you know, strapping it to your person on your hip, or at least to your backpack. Bring a first aid kit. The one on the right is like our standard car camping first aid kit. The one on the left is our standard backpacking or day hiking kit, which we bring for both. I do include water filters as a day hiking kind of kit, because it allows you to bring smaller bottles and then refill those bottles if you know there's going to be reliable water along the way, and you don't have to worry about getting sick from untreated water. And so definitely, this is all made by Catadine. I use these bag ones for larger groups, and then I carry that little, the hand pump one is a real tank too. This is a new piece of gear I just got this past year, and it is a rain shell and wind shell. And it is not just for rain. That's what a lot of people think of rain gear as, but I use it far more for wind and temperature kind of regulation than I do for just for rain. So it does look like a black plastic bag, feels like a black plastic bag, but it also condenses down. And so I put these in packs, and it just allows me to have really breathable clothing. And then when it does get extremely cold, windy, or rainy, I can throw these things on typically in the early mornings and evenings, and they all pack down to just the size of a couple decks of cards stacked on top of one another. This is absolutely micro, very advanced technology. And the top, which you see in the background, is actually a zipped hoodie that is very, very useful and very, very comfortable also. So can't recommend something like this enough. This is a new little setup for me. So this is kind of like some of your decisions for what type of trip are you going on? What type of trip do you want it to be? Do you want it to be a photo trip? Or do you want it to just be a peaceful trip? How are you going to enjoy the trip with what you have or with what you don't have? So gear can give you some superpowers. It can allow you to see and breathe underwater, just like this. It can allow you to see in the dark with a little flashlight or headlamp. It can allow you to see great distances with a binocular or a little tiny binocular like this. You can be able to be comfortable in any condition with some of the gear that we've already talked about, some of the clothing, that wind gear. You can record moments and be exactly in that moment later by recording video or photos. That is a superpower, my friends. So you're going on a water trip, why not bring some goggles? It's going to unlock an entire world underneath the water. Headlamps, bring one. Every time you go on a trip that you bring a piece of luggage, why not? This is when the lights went out in Mini Glacier, and if I had not had a headlamp, I would not have been able to negotiate inside of my room in the early morning. At late season, it is dark much later, and so even packing at night and in the morning, I had to use my headlamp. I was thankful for it. Speaking of headlamps, here's just a few. My new favorite one is this one on the left. I got it online. It's a rechargeable spotlight. It goes 100 plus 200 yards. It's absolutely amazing and less than 20 bucks. This one in the bottom, it charges phones and other USB plug-in things. It is rechargeable itself, and it's not only a flashlight, but it's also a mini lantern. Really, really great one. And then Black Diamond, one of my favorite headlamp companies, great company overall. This one on the right is my new backpacking headlamp. Takes only 2 AA's, and then I have 2 other AA's, and that's a little case for it to protect it so that the button doesn't get hit in my backpack and turn it on. Even the locking mechanism can be unlocked by stuff pressing against it in a well-packed backpack. And then that green Black Diamond is my old tank that has been on many campaigns with me, probably far more backcountry adventures than most Americans ever will go on in their entire life also. Some gear favorites of mine. We're going to go over cold weather stuff, some hats, sunbrella. Have I talked about the monocle yet? No, not really. Sunscreen sticks and heavy water bottles. Yes, please. So here is a gifted photographer in the Lamar Valley in Yellowstone, and we are very, very cold, but with the right gear, you can do this type of stuff. One thing I recommend if you are a shooter, photographer, and everyone, these little gloves where the finger cup goes over. I have neoprene for cold and snow, and then I always bring these fleece ones for everywhere. But this is not just for hiking. Like I said earlier, this can also be for skiing. The jacket that you see there and the gloves are also what I was using when I was sailing from San Francisco. Oh, I actually started in Brookings, Oregon, heading over to Hawaii. And so here I am. You can get hypothermia in 60-degree weather. So having that gear, having strong stuff can serve you in all aspects of life, not just on these backcountry adventures. Unsolicited advice number 1, unsolicited advice on owning a sailboat. If you're gonna get a sailboat, big ones, a lot of work, very expensive. I say small wooden something like this, little day sailor windbreaker, and get something you can put on a trailer. This boat is so light, I can take it off of the tongue of my vehicle and move it around by hand. If you own boats, there's none of this lowering it and raising it. Absolutely awesome. I recommend it. Headgear, something I'm very passionate about. The Rangers use these awful cardboard hats. Don't recommend them. Don't need anything crazy like this, what Dave uses on his cross-country races up in the tundra. I recommend something like this, a Tilly hat that is also waterproof that I use in Yellowstone and in Churchill. or something like this Kavoo hat that I use in all of my day hikes if it is sunny out. The Kavoo, really awesome, very light. It's got a little strap to where you can strap it in high winds, and it folds up. You can see it there on the left, goes into a pocket. And both of these hats are flexible, unlike those Ranger hats. And so they can be stored in baggage, and they're not going to get ruined, taken out, and used absolutely with no damage. And then this is one of my favorite hats, the OR hat. It's got two fold down ear flaps, and then the zipper mechanism on it has a little face shield that Velcros on the other side. If you have gone on a Yellowstone or Churchill trip with me, you have seen me wear this hat. And then also worth noting, always, always bring a mosquito head net if it is possible for bugs to be alive, because some places you cannot breathe and you cannot eat without one. So I have it in every single pack that I use. I can't recommend it enough. Okay, sunbrella. This is one of my favorite pieces of gear. I mean, animals and we seek out shade in hot. Why not bring the shade with you when you are hiking? This is not only shading your head and face, you can also use it to shade your body, and it is a game changer in extreme conditions, especially places like this in Capitol Reef. Sun gloves, I'm a huge sunscreen fan, and this eliminates a lot of the need for sunscreen, so you only put it on your face and nose. So one of my favorite things, what a lot of people call the monocle or the monocular, many, many, many animals have been spotted by this little guy right here, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's a Vortex product. We use a lot of Vortex scopes out on these trips, and so this is what I use to find the animals, and then I put it in the scope for everybody. I want to look at it through the scope. This gives you a little bit greater range of view, and so you can find the stuff, and keeps you from having to carry around a giant set of binoculars. Water bottles. I don't like the plastic taste. A lot of the bagged water bottles, water bags I have people put in their backpacks in, they can be damaged, both plastic and those bags. I have seen them pop on many trips, and then you are really out of luck and you have to use other people's water bottles. These things are invincible, and when you fill these things with water, they're 5 to 8 pounds a piece. And so the few ounces or grams you save on having a lightweight plastic or a bag thing is completely goes out the window when you put 5 to 10 pounds of water in it. Think about it. Also, some of these are insulated, keeps cold stuff cold in the summer, hot stuff hot in the winter. And dry bags, I like the Cordura types like this. These are the bottom ones, like 8 or 10 years old. The other OR one on top is fairly brand new, and they last forever. This is a wet bag. It's got a mesh top, so things dry in it. We've got some dry waterproof socks, a little squirt gun, not only to annoy your friends and family, but also to clean things off. And then a rash guard for surfing, but I also swim in it in a lot of lakes and rivers and alpine situations, as well as in the Midwest when it's a little breezy and cool. All right, that was a lot of stuff. Okay, so we've gotten through a lot of the gear stuff. We're gonna just play a few quick films. I wanna set this one up. It's called Uninvited Picnic Guests. It's about a tired guy, an end of the season day off and picnic, some uninvited guests, who are they, and then some law enforcement officers that show up. Remind me to talk about law enforcement officers if I don't. So when I am on vacation and I am working in a place like Glacier National Park, I would go to Mini Glacier for my days off, which I do. I go on hikes like this to Iceberg Lake, but I also shoot a lot of stuff from the road because there is amazing bear habitat right next to the road. You can get some unbelievable shots of bears. And so that's what I did 3 years ago at the end of the season on some of my days off before my next trip. So this is an extreme backcountry, but this is the type of shot where we're getting these bears, and it's very safe viewing. I don't want to go and displace any bear because every calorie counts when they're feeding. So I am here shooting, but it is right on the road. So I want a little break from the road and the extreme crowds. So I hike into the Swift Current Valley below this peak after shooting all of these things, after shooting the bears, and what I'm wanting to shoot are some moose at Fisher Cap Lake, and I will start the movie. This is Fisher Cap Lake, and this is a typical experience there, and let's start the film. I keep circling around the lake to the very end. Here we have some very exciting footage, yes, and then people see me hundreds of yards away. I see them point at me, and they walk the entire length of the lake, and then some extreme hiking to get to where I'm actually sitting, and they are not the unexpected guests I'm talking about. These are the unexpected guests I'm talking about. So I am in 1.5 million acres of wilderness. People come and stand 5 feet away from me. Keep in mind, I am sitting with my legs crossed, my hand in my face in my hand, I'm staring at the shrub next to me just to let them know the international sign of do not come close to me. And then I slowly raise my hand and point down to the other end of the lake and I say, bear. And all of the 5 to 7 people who were there slowly stop talking and they realize, oh my God, there's a bear down there. And a few seconds later, I say, ladies and gentlemen, we might have a very exciting experience here with these bears coming very close.
It's like black bears.
So I'm talking to the people who were there. That's where Lieutenant Colonel Chuck Angus took a nap on one of my trips, that tree. Chuck, if you're watching. And these cute little black bear cubs and this mom, every 5 to 7 days, they have been doing a loop around Mini Glacier. And this is midday, so you have a lot of the bigger, dominant, scary male bears, both blacks and grizzlies. They know that those bears are bedded down. And so this black bear and cubs are moving in a time of the day when they are not supposed to be out. And so we had this unbelievable experience. And here in a second, you're going to see how close we are to these bears. Okay. Keep in mind, I am out here to have a solo, private, personal experience. And these people have walked.
Everybody just stay calm. I'm a guide here. Just everybody be cool.
All right, I'm going to hang out behind you then.
They know we're here.
Everybody just stay calm. I'm a guide here. Just everybody be cool.
They are black bears.
This is the first time I've told them I'm a guide. Yeah,
Oh, there's 3 cubs. There's another one way up in the woods.
People, I know this. I've gotten my bear spray out already. That Velcro sound is me getting my second can of bear spray out.
There's another one way up in the woods. Yeah, I would, it's okay.
There's
It's
several
okay.
people hiding behind me at this point also.
Yeah, I would not move if I was you all. I would just stay still.
It's okay. It's okay. Clapping to scare the bears off because the cubs are actually.
I would not move if I was you all. I would just stay still. Okay, now on 3, everybody run into the woods at him. I'm joking. That's a joke.
Can I clap now?
No. We don't want to freak these guys out.
Okay, now on 3, everybody run into the woods at him. I'm joking. That's a joke.
Can I clap now?
No. We don't want to freak these guys out. They know we're here. So, this is just an illustration of, let's get back to main screen. So the moral of the story, experiencing natural places and wild animals is always better with people. I was there to be by myself, but the big takeaway was, it was so much better that I was able to share it with those people that were there. And we all laughed about it. We hung out for another 10, 15 minutes. Another moral of the story, know how to be safe around wild animals. And then the last moral, if you do see someone by themselves in a 1,000,000-acre park, please do not go stand right next to them and have a real long spirited conversation. But in the end, we all bonded, we all laughed about it, we all looked at one another's pictures. It was awesome until 2 rangers showed up and then they, oh, that was great, you saw the bears, we want to see your pictures. And they were really just thinking, as I was staring at the rangers, I said, ladies and gentlemen, they want to see your pictures because they want to know if we did something illegal to approach the bears, which I can assure them, me being a guide here, we did not. And so do be aware of that, rangers, that is one of their jobs. Of course, do not do anything illegal. Kendall, what do you think on time? What should I do? I only have a few more slides left. We can cancel the second movie.
Yeah, why don't we just not show the second movie and you can finish up and we'll get to Q&A because we do have some good questions for you.
Okay, great. Okay, so basically, I'll just do crazy animal photos here real quick. There's a little bit more of a story, but I'll just go through and rifle through it. So crazy animal photos, these are bad photos, by the way. Number 1, a large tree with a hole in it in the woods. What could go wrong? And then the second set of photos, I say this to my brother over the phone right before I go to his house. Sure, I will help you get rid of a strange animal in your backyard. By the way, no animals were harmed in the making of these photos. So I'm hiking through Otter Creek Park, one of my favorite places around Louisville, Kentucky. I see a hole. I've just gotten my new iPhone. It is waterproof. I am fearless with it. And I see a hole in a tree and I just stick the phone into the tree, my hands too. And this is the terrifying picture that I see. That is probably a 3-inch leg span on this giant wolf spider, inches away from my hand. So Moral of the story, don't ever stick your hand in any holes in any trees that you see in the forest. So, story number 2, my brother calls me on the phone. We have a strange animal. It looks like a hairless large rat or possum. I don't know what it is. I only see it at night. Will you come over this evening and try to help me get rid of it? I said, I don't want to kill anything, but I will, try to help you. I brought a Rubbermaid over, had a broom. He had a shovel and, a couple other boxes. We were going to try to get it out. So he lifts up this massive piece of pipe. They're doing work on their house for us. It's an 8-inch PVC pipe that this thing was living in, and he dumps it on the ground to the horrifying screams of his family that is there, and several women, and it is a gigantic lizard in the middle of Louisville, Kentucky. This is a non-native species, of course. And so everyone is screaming bloody murder. My brother grabs the shovel and says, kill it, kill it, kill it. I say, no, 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 no. This is someone's pet. This is a large pet lizard. And here is just a size 4 scale, and it was a gigantic monitor. Lizard, we gave it to the local animal shelter, and a few days later, they gifted us with photos of them holding it like a little baby on their shoulders. Absolutely amazing. Moral of the story is, don't buy a pet if you're not absolutely 100% you can take care of it, and that includes resources, living space, and know-how, because it was the neighbor's pet, and they had let it go the year before because it was getting too big and they couldn't take care of it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all. I hope we were able to answer questions about gear that you need. I will be here for you. My closing comments, just real quick and briefly, I like to say this to everybody: seek out wilderness near your home. You do not have to go to these far-flung places all over the world to go to that. But go by yourself. Learn how to protect yourself against dehydration, sunburn, poison oak, scorpions, snakes, and bears. Learn how to be safe out there. We've talked about some of those things today. Take more photos than you think you need. And most importantly, have fun out there. You can do that by bringing the right stuff, bringing what you want, and leaving the things at home that you do not need. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure hanging out with you guys this afternoon.
Thank you, Jeremy. There is demand to see the second video, so maybe in your next presentation you can share that.
Okay, cool. That's great.
Okay, we're going to get to the Q&A now. And just know, if you do have to leave us, we will have this replay posted around this time on Monday. All right, there's a lot of questions about recommendations, and also questions about having you repeat, I should say, names of things you recommended earlier. So let's get to it. What was the name of the tent you talked about earlier?
Oh, so the tarp tent, which is still my favorite tent, is just a large piece of tarp material with 2 ropes sewn onto it, or you could just drag a rope over it. And then I like it to be long and thin, so people sleep with their feet together or their heads together, depending on how close they are. And the tent that we now use most of the time is a Z-Pack. Z-PACK, I believe, is the actual company. And they make tents and a whole host of stuff, And a side note on that, I did sew my own sleeping bag, which I have for solo trips when it's just me, but I also sewed from that Ray Jardine kit 2 sleeping bags that you zip together, top and bottoms, that my fiance and I use. And we split those when we were hiking. I cannot recommend that also enough. And there are several companies who sell that setup too.
Right.
Z-Packs are a little expensive, but they are very tough, and they are industry standard now for really serious thru hikers. I cannot recommend it enough.
Okay. And the Zero shoes you were talking about, do they have anti-slip soles?
It's not the soft rubber, but it's not, like, the only place that I have noticed an issue is in Churchill, but any shoes have an issue other than my big giant Baffin boots. And on that note, they have just come out with, which I am very excited about, I just found out about this last week, some kind of alpine boots or tundra boots that are much larger, much more insulated than a lot of these shoes, because a lot of these shoes are designed not to be insulated. So to answer your question, let's see what we've got here. You can see the sole here. It is a good traction and it does last. And so I personally you know, summiting many, many, many mountains, 10,000 footers and 14ers with them. I personally have never had an issue with any non-slip, you know, ability with them. Saying that, the only issue I have had summiting is with the low tops, scree sliding and hitting your sides of your ankles, but with the high tops, that is a non-issue. So basically, that's the only issue with wearing, but that's more a low top issue, not the actual shoe design.
Mm-hmm. And do you recommend any flexible soled shoes, regardless of the walking style?
This is the only company that I know that makes this style of shoes. You know, I'm trying to think of what Merrell had some trail runners. They were a little bit stiffer than what Zero shoes are, but they were excellent. They stopped making them in the wide toe box, and so they make them still, but it crams my foot into them. And then I think Lems, Lems, makes some that are fairly flexible, but still they're a lot thicker and less flexible than these. And then I have heard of a late, one of my friends just texted me a photo of his, and they were 16 or 17 ounces, so some very lightweight, slightly thicker soled hiking shoes. I think those are actually hiking boots, actually. So there's some very lightweight hiking boots. But when he showed me the size of the sole, I was like, yeah, no, these are not, because there's no padding on these. And so that is a benefit. When you are hiking, it feels like, you know, at the end of the day, when I first started wearing those, it feels like you were you had a foot massage all day long. And so when I would get back from those first few days of hiking at the beginning of the season, when I first started wearing these shoes, my feet, ankles, and calves just felt amazing. It felt like I had a foot massage all day long. They actually sell these types of things that replicates that, and it's actually very, very healthy for your foot. I keep it under my desk, and while I'm working and typing, I will be actually massaging the soles of my feet, and it's really, really healthy for you to have all that. People think that the padding is going to protect you, but more, if you are nimble on your foot and you step properly, you can curve your foot around a sharp object or something that is really poking you to cause pain. But really, you can just kind of do a little quick hop step and step off of it, or step right on it, and it's actually pushing into the sole of your foot. And it's actually like a foot massage. I know that sounds weird because you can get some stone bruises, but as you adjust your gait and your step, a lot of that goes away. And those types of things become like a welcome part of hiking. And so there's very little padding. But keep in mind, these shoes are being prescribed by doctors for people with plantar fasciitis and all sorts of other foot and body issues. And so that lack of that very soft sole is a bonus. You know, I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah. Final footwear question. Do you have any recommendations for foot gear if you wear custom orthotics?
I think you can put them into the bottoms of these shoes. And I know that when I go to Churchill, I have two different things that I put in the bottom simply to give me a tiny bit of insulation from the ground, because the ground is so cold up there. But keep in mind, I wear these shoes in Winnipeg and in Churchill unless I'm out on the rover. And so it is still very, very tough. But I think custom orthotics fit in there, but certainly the people at Zero are going to be able to answer that question. The main thing is these shoes are very wide and comfortable, so I think you're going to be able to fit anything in there that you need to.
Great. And I'm going to ask you another question, but really quickly while I'm doing that, can you switch back to the slide of movie and book recommendations?
Yes, at the very beginning. So the movie is My Octopus Teacher, and that is on Netflix. Really charming movie. And then the books, The $12 Million Stuffed Shark, and then Will Hoagland is the author of the other two books, Autumn of the Black Snake and The Whiskey Rebellion. And both of them are really, if you are a history person, you're going to hit the ground 60 miles an hour loving these two books. But if you're not a history person, there's a little bit of build up to say who the characters in the book. These are nonfiction, of course, to explain who people are, set the stage, and then to tell the story of what's happening in this formative part of the U.S. history. And it's absolutely fascinating too. You know, we're talking about the formation of Standing Army, Federal Reserve, opening up Ohio to westward expansion, which became one of the biggest industrial, you know, production areas in the history of the world. You know, so this has got like long-lasting effects that we still feel today, and the history is amazing. And it also paints some very famous historical figures in a different light, which is both entertaining and very paradigm shifting also.
Great. And there was some curiosity about the wind rain suit. What was the name of that suit?
There are several, oh my gosh, but I can't, it's downstairs, otherwise I would pull it out. That is, it's in the ultralight backpacking community. And so if you can find that, we're talking about, you know, rain pants that fold up to this size, as big as, you know, the large iPhone 8, you know, and the jacket is the same size. And so that's what you're looking for. I apologize for not knowing. It's a bigger company. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but I cannot think of it right now. Sorry.
That's okay. Shout it out if it comes to you.
Okay.
And there was someone who was having trouble finding the sunbrella that you recommended. Do you have any tips on how to find it or what brand it is?
I have it right here. But that one, there are multiple companies that make these, and a lot of people, this is a Gossamer Gear, and I think that's actually who makes the pants and the jacket, actually. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that is actually who it is. And,
that worked out.
And this one, I don't think it's that expensive, $40. The rain suits and pants and top, I think were like $40 a piece, but it's not something you're wearing like, if it's like a rainy day, you may want to bring some regular rain gear. This, why I was showing that was you can throw this in on a day that's partly cloudy and you're supposed to get rain later this evening or tomorrow morning, and you think, we might get some high winds coming in on that front, and you have it just in case there is those high winds or rain. And so it's kind of an emergency thing, but I do use that. That's all that I bring on my backpacking trips, unless I am starting out and it's like, I know I'm going to be walking 5 days through rain, you know, if that makes sense. And then I'll bring something that's more Cordura-like, or what you would typically think of as rain or snow pants type situation.
Okay, great. And what's the must-have things to have in a first aid kit if you're going on a day hike?
Some bandages, Band-Aids, obviously, antibiotics, and then let's see, I really am a huge fan of Benadryl, both oral and topical, because some issues they can be very life-threatening also, actually, if people have those issues. But also it can make someone, say, a bee sting or some sort of reaction to something. That can ruin the day, versus if you have those things, it can save the day and everybody have a normal day. Let's see, splinter outs. That's another thing, to get splinters out, because that can also ruin a day. If you have the right tool, you can immediately pull a splinter out, and they're disposable, kind of. Let's see. Well, these are just things off the top of my head. And then there are a couple other, some anti-inflammatories and some light pain relievers that will function the same way. And then depending on who you're hiking with, you may want some blood thinners, and a ace bandage is a very handy tool. A triangular bandage is a really handy tool that you can make a tourniquet, or you can make something to hold like an injured appendage. And then my new favorite ace bandage is the self-sticking one, that you don't need the little stickers to do it. It kind of just sticks to itself, and it's reusable. And so you say you're on a 5-day trip, you can use it for 2 days, unroll it, and someone else can use it also, if the need arises. That's kind of gross, but if the need arises. Those are just a few things off the top of my head. Yeah, and I have really shrunk my kit down and really blown it back up as situations have called. Tweezers are another really, really handy thing. And then, you know, if I'm traveling to a third world country after going to Guatemala and cutting my foot very badly on a piece of glass, and it was in a building that we were standing on, you know, just touring it, I actually bring in that type of situation a small trauma kit. But that's whole next level. You know, I've been, you know, wilderness first responder trained for decades now. I'm wilderness first aid trained. And so I have a tremendous amount of training for some of that stuff, but the minimalist kits, it is some very basic stuff that you actually need. Also, medical tape is really handy for a lot of different stuff, and it can fix gear also if it breaks. That's just a small list. There's a lot of resources on that too of what you need, but you know, start a little kit, and then as you need stuff, add it in, and then as you've had it, and you think, I've not used this for a long time, and I have this stuff which kind of will cover that. Does that make sense? And so you can, you know, push and pull over your own experience. But those things will certainly get you hitting the ground running.
Okay, great. And final question, and I know this will kind of depend on the hike and the weather and whatnot, but how much water do you recommend bringing on a day hike?
Excellent question. You know, I have Luke and Evie here. This is who are my niece and nephew on the pictures. This is about what I bring everywhere. And, you know, even on just a little photo shoot around town, and then leave this in the car. And so this is still like my normal day hiking. But if I were to be going somewhere, say Capitol Reef, where water is, you know, far apart and it's very hot, I would bring two like this, or maybe this, and then the next size up, and I'm filtering into those every chance I get. So on that Dawson Pitamakan hike, I think I brought a small water filter, and you can use a SteriPen now. I've been thinking about getting one of those. I just like my filter, and it's like tank, like safe, and it is really, really tough. And so, you know, you could bring a small bottle like this and then filter, especially if you're hiking along streams and to lakes and things like that. And then you finish your water, you sit and you filter, and then you finish like two more of the waters, especially if it's midsummer, especially if you're in elevation, drink so much that you feel a little nauseated. And then in 15 minutes, as you're hiking with a full water bottle, you feel amazing. And so it really does depend on where you're going. If you're in a desert situation, or if you're in, say, the Northwest where you're surrounded by water, having a small water filter, you can just bring a tiny water bottle, basically.
Okay.
Drink more water than you think you need, though, I would say. Always.
Did you have a brand that you recommend for the bottles?
Oh, Clean Canteen. I meant to say that when I was saying that earlier, and their tops are interchangeable. So as you know, as I've lost some tops, I have these other ones, and they're super tough. And then they make different tops. So some of those insulated ones, they have like a coffee top or tea top that they would use, and they have different styles of tops also. But the metal ones I really like. There are a couple different companies, but the Clean Canteen, with this KLEAN, canteen with a K, you should be able to find that easily online. That's my favorite, just because it's kind of modular, and the tops all fit together. But any metal ones would do, as long as it's not one that uses some sort of dangerous alloy inside of it. So make sure you're not getting like an older metal water bottle that's got some weird alloy lined on the inside that can actually harm you if you're drinking out of it.
Absolutely. All right, well, I'm going to call it there with questions, and I'll hand it back over to you, Jeremy, for any final thoughts.
I think I've said everything. I really appreciate everyone's time, but I will end with the same way that I end every trip, every single webinar, every talk that I do. You know, we go out into these places for a very specific reason. It is our birthright. Every culture with a written language expounds on the healing and restorative properties of seeking out wilderness areas. Seek them out by your home. Seek them out in these far-flung places around the world. And when you go there, bring some of that garbage and some of that drama and some of your petty civilized junk that you bring with you, metaphorically speaking, of course. Leave it there in a pile on the trail, and take back some of that peace, that quiet, that inspiration you find out in the wilderness. back with you to your civilian life. And thank you guys very much for your time.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much, Jeremy. This was really insightful. So it was such a pleasure to have you here. And my thanks as well to everyone who tuned in today. Be sure to join us on Monday for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out our website for the latest lineup and keep an eye out for our Sunday e-news. And no, your eyes are not deceiving you. We have 6 webinars scheduled next week. We did record today's presentation and we'll have the replay available on our website soon. And with that, I will conclude the webinar. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.